Hi folks, I'm Byron Chaves, Lake Fork Guide. Today we're going to go over the setup of a Carolina rig. Today my choice is Okuma Serrano heavy action 7.3 loaded with 50-pound soft steel braid with the Okuma Pixar 7:1:1 gear ratio reel. And now I'm going to go into my setup with you guys, show you a couple little tips and technique and tricks that we do over here. Might help get you more bites. Today I'm using a soft steel fluoro stretch fluorocarbon line in a 15-pound. I based a 15-pound test on the water clarity that we have today. This fluoro stretch actually has a little bit of stretch to it. It's got a 30% stretch to it, which is most in most fluorocarbons. Because of that stretch, I've got braid, I've got a lot of line out there. I want a little bit of give when I go to set that hook, which is why this fluoro stretch is a good choice for me. Also, today we're gonna be using a Zoom Salty Fluke, and I chose the Houdini color. One of the real popular colors on this lake is watermelon red. This has a little bit of watermelon red with a little milky and copper flake with a little lighter tail. I think it gives a little more of a better bait fish presentation. So this is excellent choice for Lake Fork. Also here, I have a marker. What I'm gonna do after I get done tying this all up is I'm gonna take my black marker and I'm gonna color this line. I'm gonna color probably 4 to 5 feet of this line. What that's gonna do is it's gonna make it a little less visible underwater. Right now we got a little bit clearer water conditions, and so that's probably gonna help me get another bite or two throughout the day, just giving a little stealthier look to it. All right, so let's go into our setup here. First thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna slide my weight on my main line. Some people use a bead. I personally am not gonna use a bead today. We got pretty subtle condition. These fish aren't real aggressive. We got pretty clear water. So I personally just don't feel it's necessary to use a bead. If I was in summertime where I might be fishing, you know, more aggressive fish, I might go to a bead and just give it a little bit of a clacking action. So for the swivel, I'm using just a regular polymer knot. You have to forgive me, my hands are cold and they don't work good when they're cold. Okay, always wet that line, make sure you get a good wet on that line, even with the braid. Swivel tied on with my main weight. And now I'm gonna get me about 4 feet a leader here. Some people really like a long leader. It's just a preference. I find that with a real long leader, it's a little tougher to cast. So I typically like my leaders around 3 feet. So I'm gonna use 4 feet a leader approximately. And what I'm gonna do on this end is I'm gonna tie what they call a porter knot. It's a real super strong knot that is excellent with not only mono, but fluorocarbon. It's kind of tough to tie 2 polymers on one bait here. So I personally like the porter knot. I've been using it for years, and it's been an excellent knot for me. It's typically, essentially like an old school cinch knot, except for you're doubling your lines up. You're gonna have 3 tag lines when you tighten this up. Very easy knot to tie, very strong knot to tie. And again, not all knots work really good on both mono and fluorocarbon, but this one does. And that's your porter knot right there. So I'm gonna have 3 tag ends on this, cut this loop off, and now I've got my porter knot. On the other end, for this particular bait, I've chosen a 4/0 VMC hook. I really like the VMCs in this situation. They got the coat around the eye. It keeps your line from sliding over, getting hung up where that loop comes together and damaging your knot. Really works good. All right, Now I've got my hook tied on. Cut this off and rig my bait. I'm going to come straight down the middle. It's important to get it in the middle. You want this bait as straight as possible, especially a fluke, otherwise they're going to twist around on you a lot. And that's the other importance of having a good quality swivel. I'm going to feed this through, pull it through the bait, turn that hook. I'm going to come in here, I'm going to see where I need to put this. Bring it in there, expose it right there. Let me do a little skin hook to keep that bait weedless. That way it's going to come through the cover good. Earlier we talked about color and line. All I got here is just a black permanent marker. I'm just going to go up and down my line a handful of times. It doesn't have to be completely black. Sometimes it takes a little while to dry and you got to go over it again. But what that's going to do is it's going to just fade out that real bright green and just give it a little more stealth under the water, make it a little harder for them to see under the conditions. So here we got our completed setup. We got the Carolina rig, we got our 3/4 ounce tungsten weight, ball bearing swivel, 15-pound soft steel fluorocarbon line with about 3.5 feet a leader or so with our Zoom Super Fluke Houdini fluke. What I'm gonna do, what we got here, is we've got an old pond dam here, and I'm just gonna cast up and over that pond dam and crawl it slowly over the pond dam. I'm gonna let it sink to the bottom. It doesn't usually take that long with 3/4 ounce of weight. And I'm just gonna slowly just move my rod tip real slow. Just real slow, real subtle. I'm just gonna drag that bait. With that 3/4 ounce weight, you can really feel it ticking everything on the bottom. It's a good search bait. You can use it fast, you can use it slow. This time of year, I'm gonna use it a little bit slower. And sometimes I might even give it a little pop, give it a little bit of action, especially if I'm like near a brush pile or near a piece of wood that I can visibly see, or if I'm got a piece of stand-up timber I'm gonna be coming by, I might give it a little pop, just give it a little bit of action. So you just gotta play with that cadence and see what works. Sometimes they want an ultra subtle presentation. If they want an ultra subtle presentation, I talked about this earlier, is stitching. And with stitching, all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab my line and I'm simply just gonna walk that bait through the water and just keep dragging the bait. And then once I get about 13, 14 inches of line, I'm gonna reel down, pick up my slack, I'm gonna repeat that cadence. I'm just gonna work everything with my fingers. By doing that, it's gonna allow me to feel everything on the bottom. It's gonna slow me down, and it's a real good subtle presentation. I recommend trying. If you'd like to learn more about the tips and techniques that we're using today, please visit softsteelusa.com.